You're watching CCN, Clarksville Community Network. Produced by Goodwin Productions. Powered by CDE Lightband.
Welcome back to CCN Network, Coach's Corner, Part 3. So the guys are talking, and listen, let me just tell you, they got makeup on. It's taken us 20 minutes just to get to this episode. So, hey, makeup is on. We're ready to go today. So listen, so the first thing we want to talk about with Coach Gallowitz, okay, from West Creek. We got Coach Peña from Northwest. So we want to talk about the old days. Now, for me, it's 1920, okay, but for these guys, it's very recent. So, Coach G, we're going to talk with you. So, high school moments. Let's talk about what was your best high school moment. What do you remember the best? And you know where you played at. Let's bring that up. And also let's talk about, unfortunately, maybe you've got something that maybe it wasn't very good. So something that you remember is sort of a bad memory. Yeah. What do you got for us, Coach G?
I think the good memory, I played at Northeast High School, so I'm from the city and I played inside the city. And we had some struggling years over there.
Okay, who was your coach?
Paul Watkins.
Okay, what time frame was this?
That was 2008.
Okay. Right.
So that was my senior year. I would say my senior year, Kenwood was probably one of the best schools in the city by far. They had Amias Smith.
Oh, yeah.
He was at quarterback. He was super athletic. And, I mean, he was just absolutely shredded out. And so I played defensive end and tight end. And we didn't have a tight end, so I played a lot of defensive end. And that was a game. I had a really good game. We lost 14-0, but performance-wise, I had a sack or two, and against Amias, I mean, that's a pretty incredible feat.
Back in that day, Amias, if you're watching now, that he was super talented. Yeah. And if you got to go back to before Amias, you go back to Will Martin, which is when the school first opened. It was probably one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best. Yep. Quarterback that ever come through Clarksville. He's amazing. I got to talk with him the other night at a basketball game. So nice to see you again, Will. So Will was great. Amias
was a good player. And then I think one of the maybe the most embarrassing moments I've had, we were playing Dixon County, and I'll never forget it. I went a little too low on their running back. Their running back was built like Jerome Bettis. So if you don't know who Jerome Bettis is, he was the
bus.
Long time.
The bus.
The bus. He played for the
right.
Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was built like a porta potty almost, but filled with bricks. And I went down on him, and I came back up and thought we were playing, in Nashville, and that was
you weren't in Nashville.
No, we were at Dixon. We were at Dixon.
All right. That was close, though.
Yeah, I had to be reminded where
wrong
I was
zip code.
at. Yeah,
wrong zip code.
Okay. A little far off from home. But yeah, I mean, that was one of those hits where you can hear the whole stadium go, ooh, but those were probably my two. What about you, Coach?
Well, mine actually is from when I played quarterback. First of all, my best moment, I remember like the first time I threw a passing touchdown. I was at North Charleston High School in South Carolina. The head coach was Coach Huggins. We called him Coach Thuggins because, he just a big, intimidating dude. And we're playing JV that night. My JV coach, Jimmy Brown, he was one. And we were supposed to, it was a quick 3-step drop, hitch step, throw it down the side. So that's right. Fake the play action from the I formation.
Hold on.
No I.
Okay,
there was no I formation was going on.
Oh, okay.
But that particular play, there was no play action. It was just 3 steps,
right.
Let it ride, throw the fade. I get hit. I'm on the ground, but I hear everybody screaming. I'm like looking around, like, did we score? And then I pop up, and I remember the kid, Isaac. His name was Isaac. Scored my first passing touchdown. Beautiful catch. Apparently, I don't remember how but I know he scored. My most unfortunate one was also at quarterback. We're playing Berkeley High School, which they're a pretty good program, and I think we were running a play action boot, something like that, and the defensive end just read it from start to finish, and I get smoked. I mean, I'm playing here, and I'm sitting to turn around, and all I see is stags, and I get knocked. To the point where I was in the same issue as you. I probably thought I was in Columbia, South Carolina somewhere. they asked. I know they asked my address. I don't remember anything else they asked me. I was out the rest of that game, but those are my two big memories, and that's like, 9th grade, 10th grade, man. It was crazy.
Well, now, as you notice, these guys are forgetting things. Those are because of concussions. I'm going to remember everything, so I don't remember those different zip code areas, okay? I don't remember those. So for me to start so my first experience in high school, so I was in junior high. That was right after Prohibition for some of you older people.
Wow.
So, right after. So, I go to the high school, where it's grades 10 through 12 at Oliver Springs High School. So we're spring scrimmage, okay? We're playing Saskatchewan County, and they have a 4-4 defense, and they're all 6'2", 225.
Yikes.
So we run the old speed option, right? So I'm running down the line. I go to pitch the ball. The guy picks me up, slams me. I'm done for spring. That's it. All over with. I'm on the sideline. My arm is locked up. I'm done. So that was my first one. That was in spring ball. So going into my sophomore year, the very first game, so we end up getting beat 14-7. It's a tight ball game. It's 7-7 at the time. I throw a pick. So I'm floating down to make sure he doesn't score and playing a little free safety. And then he gets tackled. So, so I stop and the play is over with. And by the time I stand up, this guy clocks me. And I mean like unloads. So the next thing I know is I'm on top of him. We're brawling. Okay, so we're brawling. Coaches are out, teams are out, and then they broke us all up, and so we went to our sidelines and we resumed play. Now, back in those days, you could break people up, and you could get them on the sideline, and you could start the game over again. Nowadays, flags are flying, people suspended, fines are going on. So
it's not leather helmets.
No leather helmet. Listen, we fold them up, we put them in our back pocket. Okay, break them out when you need them.
Yep.
So I guess a really good moment for high school.
I thought that was the good moment.
When I got upended, that was not very fun. Okay. So we played Gibbs and won in double overtime, and I was playing running back and receiver and had a couple passes for 100 yards and receiving yards for over 100 something, and got East Tennessee Player of the Week with Elroy Harris, who went on to play with Penn State, if I remember, and then Pittsburgh. So that was a good moment. I had a couple other good moments in high school, really enjoyed, but that was a lot of fun. You look back in high school, and as we talk to our kids on a daily basis, I went to college and played here at Austin Peay, but just remembering the high school and the guys that you played with, so much fun to have that teamwork and the bond from your school, and I think that's what we try to establish in our schools is, West Creek and Northwest, and establishing those type moments and having great moments for the kids and building things for your school and having great pride in your school and your community.
Well, I think what's more important that coincides with that is just to make sure that you're just so genuine about who you are, man. That's what attracts these kids. These kids don't like the cookie cutter coaches anymore. They love genuine coaches. And, it's unfortunate that some coaches do get a bad rap as far as the way we speak and portray ourselves. We've seen a lot of this recently where, the phone and the cameras are recording everything we're saying now, even in the locker room. And I don't know how y'all's locker rooms are. I don't. But me, I'm a very passionate, very expressive dude, and I'm a former soldier, so I know my mouth I can say some things I'm not supposed to sometimes, but never to the point where I'm, belittling a player, of course. But my question would be, what is your most, intense, frustrating moment where you lose your stuff, let's say it like that, but not to the point where, like I said, we're not talking about belittling a specific kid. It might be a time or a moment in a game, and I'll start with mine. It was, I would have to say, my first year coaching. It was in Savannah, Georgia, and I was at Windsor Forest High School, man. And Coach Roundtree was the head coach, and Coach LeCurve was the defensive coordinator. I was a DB's coach, man. And we go down to Camden County High School. Now, half their team's already signed to the University of Georgia, so we're just going to walk into a storm. It's okay, hostile crowd, everything like that. And I think what bothered me is we played so well, but you never understand like the little things that trigger momentum swings.
Right.
Well, that night we were playing really well, and then the power goes out. Like all the lights in the stadium and everything goes out. And I guess we left with the lights, because after that, they just were scoring in bunches. And the one thing I could just remember is just losing my stuff every time they score, because, you know, I'm a young coach, so I see the mistakes. Sometimes you see it coming and you're like, no, flipping, like things like that. So I think that was one of the biggest moments. We got mauled like 56-7 that night. But that was, you know, that's one of those moments where it was just like frustrating, a rough night. And then I want to ask y'all the same thing, if y'all had those frustrating nights where as coaches, like you just are to that boiling point. And then on the flip side, I know we've talked about our best moments, but if you have an alternate one, maybe a win on the road or something.
What do you think, Coach G?
I think you got to be careful when you're, like you said, you got to be genuine. So the kids have to understand, like I'm not a big, like, gonna go out into the middle of the 50 and scream at people and yell at referees and stuff like that. Like I'm a much more composed person.
No, that's me.
But I think there are times like when you do have those kind of outbursts, like they have to know that your intention is in the right place.
Absolutely.
You know, I think, you know, we've played teams where like kids go into games expecting to win, and then they come out flat, and it's like almost like watching a cat like play with its like food a little bit. Like they're just kind of like toying with it, and they're not executing the way you want them to. They're doing things they normally wouldn't do.
Right.
Where you know, up until this game, you know, we're 6 games in. You've never done that. You've never done these kind of antics where it's, you know, they're dancing around pre-snap, or they're doing things that they've seen maybe on TV where it's like, that's not who we are.
Oh, man.
Like we're up, you know, 21 points, but like we don't represent ourselves like that. That's not something, you know. And whereas they think we're gonna go in the locker room, game's over, like we're up 21, you know, the game is flowing, you know, everything's going right. It's like, well, there's still a way you have to win.
That's right.
And so sometimes you do have to kind of let them know, like, this is the standard we're going to keep, regardless if we're playing, you know, a 4A opponent, a 6A opponent, whoever, it doesn't matter. Whoever ends up on our schedule, you still treat them with that same respect. And I would say, I mean, there's definitely times, I wouldn't even say it's a low moment of coaching. I would say it's an element of coaching where, like, sometimes you do have to get in that locker room and remind them pretty quick, like, if you lose this football game, like everything that we've worked for, everything that we've set up, like these teams we play, like you guys all go to practice the same amount of time we do. You guys were in the off-season weightlifting. Like if we give you guys even a little bit of hope, like we've all seen it. Like there's plenty of times we've gone in the locker room, we're down, we come back out, and we end up winning. You know what I mean? Or there's times at halftime where, you know, we're up on opponents, and then like Rossview, we were up on you guys at half, and then we end up losing.
I think sometimes momentum. I mean, we talk about that a lot, is momentum, how you don't know when it's a play or a person with a foul or a penalty. You don't know when momentum is really going to affect your team. Yeah,
and I think that's the biggest thing, is like kind of going back to what you said, you know. I will say, you know, I think there was a game, and, you know, I don't want to say the team, but there was a team where I went in the locker room and I'm like, you are better than this team. Like you should be playing at like I want this more than you want this right now, and that's insane.
Well, I've said that many times.
Yeah, like I want this more than you want it, and that's bonkers, because like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're out there in shoulder pads, banging into each other, putting the work in, putting the time. Like you should want this 10 times more than I want it, because you've been working for it, and you know, sometimes I think they have to be reminded in different types of ways, you know. So I would say, you know, I think this year I had a couple of those moments.
I think every coach has those moments. For me, I mean, I'm very strict. I like to say that I'm firm, but I'm fair. I love my kids, and I love cutting up with my kids. I love disciplining my kids. That's all part of it. I really enjoy that part of the game. That's who I've always been. And I've always prided myself on having a nice, disciplined team, because I know sometimes you may not be as talented, but you know if you're really disciplined in what you do and how you talk and how you step and how you execute and how you work as a team, eliminate mistakes and penalties, if you can be really great in those areas, and sometimes you can beat people you're not supposed to beat.
For sure.
So we've always tried to pride ourselves in doing those type things. I can remember back when I was at Montgomery Central, I don't know what year this was, probably 2004 or 5, and we're playing on the road against Camden. And I was a defense coordinator. Ricky Ray was the head coach. And so they played the wing tee, and I felt really good about the game plan. And we go out there, and I'm just calling the plays, and we're doing this stuff. And everything we practiced, nothing was working. I mean, nobody was in the right spot. Nobody was doing the right thing. And the traps and the buck sweep and all this stuff was going on. So power goes off. So we're down like 14-7. So we go in the locker room, and I get a little crazy and throw a couple pins, smack a couple boards, get a little, they pull me out, get a little crazy, getting them all fired up. So about 45 minutes later, we go back out, and we won the game like 41-7, something like that, or 41-14. It was a total reversal. Now, you got to think, is it because of me? Was it because of the act? Was it because of getting on the kids, the discipline? I think it was probably more of them to understand, getting the point across to them that, hey, man, you're not playing the way you're supposed to, and this is what our expectations are. So we go back out, they run like buck sweep, nothing. They do the little Utah pass, -2. The waggle pass, a little bootleg pass, nothing. And from that point on, it's all over with. Yeah. And those are things when you practice, you see us doing it in practice, and we went out and executed on the game. So that was a memory I'll never forget. But a funny one. So we're playing Springfield. I'm at Northwest. Eric Hall's the quarterback. Eric, I don't know if you ever remember this, but we're up 28-0 against Springfield in the first quarter. Okay? We just scored to go up 28-0. So Eric comes off the sideline, all irate. I quit. I'm done. I quit. And I'm like, Eric, we're up 28-0. I'm like, it's 28-0. Things are going well. What are you upset with? We should be good here, So you don't never know how kids respond. So people think, hey, when you're down, kids respond a certain way. But sometimes, you can be on the winning side of that, and kids respond in a different way. Yeah. You don't know why. It's because someone said something to you. You didn't get the ball. You didn't complete the pass. The play wasn't called to you. You don't know what sometimes kids are thinking. I can tell you another one. We're playing Henry County. We're at Northwest. They were number 4 in the state. So before pregame starts, this set a bad tempo for us. We weren't very good that year. So we're on the sideline, right? And we're coming out to the field. Coaches are on the sideline. So Henry County, we all know about Henry County, great traditional program. They're like 4 in the state. They have this big sign up. Going to win. You got to run through it. All that fun stuff that everybody has. And so they put the sign up, their cheerleaders are lined up, and you're waiting for them to run through it, and here comes my defensive end right down the middle of it. Yeah, he busted that thing wide open, and here comes our sideline. I'm like, Lord Jesus, that wasn't very good. So needless to say, they took out all the frustration on us that night. And it was a bad beating. That guy ended up coaching for me later on.
There you go.
So, and I reminded him of that many, many times, and he will still apologize to this day. But it's just funny what kids think and do. And you're talking about discipline, like kids, like how do you discipline kids? I have put kids in the bleachers during games. Yeah. I have sent them in during games. I have made them run during jamborees. I have made them run at halftime or quarters between jamborees. There haven't been many things that I haven't done to discipline kids. Because, what you say is what you mean. That's why, I don't say things to be saying things. When we understand and we have an understanding of what our rules and how I expect, especially when I've talked to you, if I've talked to a certain individual, I have put kids in the bleachers. I've sent them home with parents. I've taken their pads off. I mean, I've done just about anything you can do in my tenure as a head coach. And I think those type things let kids know that your words, when you say things, you mean things. And I'm sure all of us has probably been through a certain time where you have to discipline a kid. And it's not what you want to do, right? Yeah. No. I mean, you want kids to get after it, to be disciplined, be on track, and to be a team. But kids are kids, and we're all normal. And you're teaching those kids the teachable moments, how to correct things, how to do things the right way. And I think for me, I've done many different things to correct kids in many different situations. So I don't know if you can remember a few things there.
Well, I think that's like going into like when you're building a program, and granted, I mean, this has only been my first year, so I really can't speak to this much. But I think when you are developing a type of culture, like part of the fun part is watching the buy-in. So like when you do have those motivational speeches at halftime, or, you know, you do teach a technique where it's like, if you just do it my way, you'll see a result. And then they go out and they see the result and they come back and they're like, you're right. And you're like, crazy, you know? But then in order to set that culture though, in order to get that example, there's got to be some people that are the example of, you do it your way. Like I tell kids all the time, like, and you know, it may be silly, but nobody's bigger than West Creek.
Sure.
Like, and what I mean by that is nobody's bigger than Rossview. Nobody's bigger than Northwest. Like eventually you can't coach forever. Like, and Rossview still has to figure out a way to win games and to coach. Like, you know, I think sometimes you get players that are like, well, you can't do it without me. Well, in a year, I'm going to have to figure out what I'm like Caden Pace was our quarterback. He was an incredible student, incredible athlete. But like, there's like, I just can't be like, well, Caden's gone, so that's it. Like, we're gonna shut the football program down. I got to figure it out.
That's true.
Like, and they have to. And I think sometimes, you know, I see sometimes in the coaching, you know, field where people are like, hey, we're going to keep this kid because we got to win X, Y, Z. But it's like, man, but like when he graduates, you still got to figure out how to win those games. Like,
but in a lot of senses, and I'll say it like this, there are some coaches that will leave once that quarterback leaves or once that star player leaves too. And they'll say, all right, I had my success. I know it's about to be a down year. It's fine. And I mean, that's normal. But the discipline part, you're absolutely right too as well. And you know, you have to definitely set a standard in your program to make sure they understand. And you know, I've kicked everybody out of practice before. I've put kids in the bleachers. I've done things like that to that nature, and I haven't done it. You know, this ain't a thing that happens to me all the time, but there ain't many fields here in Clarksville that my kids didn't run on after a game. If they did something wrong. Like we did at Montgomery Central, we did at Springfield. I believe we did at Rossview for a JV game. Like, you have to have that standard and precedence in order to make sure that the discipline stays there, or the patients are going to run the asylum. But on the flip side, what you're saying is, yeah, you just have to have that one person that just sticks out and is an amazing leader for, you know. But what do you do after? You got to breed more leaders. You got to make sure that your leader aspect is plural, not singular. And, you know, I think it's one of the more exciting parts of, you know, all of us going into this season because, you know, everybody had a senior quarterback minus Kenwood. So now it's like, we have to find that standout leader, and it may not be at quarterback, it may be somebody else through there, because I think one of mine is going to be a defensive end, and his name's Bryce Brooks, and he's going to be a junior next year, and you know, but he's a 4.0 student, has a great attitude, gets the respect of the players, no matter what grade they are. You always have to see who's next. Raymond was my guy. Raymond's been my guy since I started coaching, and you know, I'm thankful that he's, you know, graduating, going to Sewanee, and, you know, it's time to find the next one. You're absolutely right.
Let me ask you this. So a big thing I'm always looking for is, like you said, develop those leaders. Like, what are some things y'all do in your programs that develop leadership qualities? Because, you know, I had a parent, you know, once upon a time say, like, well, these kids don't know how to be leaders because you haven't really shown them. And my argument sometimes is like, well, the kids know right from wrong. Like, do you, you know, I had this kind of conversation today, like when you come in the locker room and we go to the weight room, like everybody knows that you're expected to give 100%. Yes or no? Yes. Okay. We don't play around in the weight room. Yes or no? No, we don't play around in the weight room. Okay. So like, we all understand the basic principles of what to do. You know, should you go to class and try your best.
Here we
yes
go.
or no?
That's right.
Yes.
All right.
Should we, when a sub's there, should we act out or should we, behave and do what they say? Yes. So if we know that, there's nothing to teach anybody. You know right from wrong because you answered the questions and we're all competent.
But I think that goes back to 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. Their kids are learning. I think really I just have to state that leadership is harder to come by, I feel like nowadays. And I feel like, can I make a kid a leader? No, I don't think I can do that. I really don't. I think I can show them. I can teach them. We have an honor council, and I show them leadership. We do videos. We do talks. We have different times I'll pull them to the side and say, hey, I need you to do this. And I put them in situations where I back out of the equation just to see how they respond to things and make them lead things. And I've done that more the last few years than I've done in the past. But I've been a part of other teams where I didn't even have to do that. There was true leaders on the team. And I've been a part of teams where you really struggle with kids doing things because you understand, and now in the generation now is they hate to go against each other. They feel like, hey, if I say something in front of everybody else, then I'll get ridiculed. Instead of being, hey, it's about the team, it's about bonding. They sort of feel like more I get ridiculed from my teammates, I think, than going forward and becoming a leader. So we do things like that as far as meetings and put them in situations to build leadership and see how they respond with that. Then I'll critique them. I'll pull them to the side and say, hey, man, when we did this, I need you to lead here. I need you to be here. You need to say this. Make sure you're looking at them, be more stern. And sometimes it's just exercises, right? Sometimes it can be, how do we warm up right? And I'll pull them and say, hey, too much talking, too much clowning around. So, hey, next time we do that, hey, get them focused before you start, remind them what we're doing and why we're doing things. Because now it's a generation of why. You got to tell them, why are we running this play? What are we looking at? Why are we doing this in the program? So I think leadership isn't something I can just say, hey, man, you're my leader. I think even the play from our kids, the teammates, as you know, they will respond to that leader. Right? I mean, I've had quarterbacks that do a really good job, but the team didn't rally behind them. And I've had other kids where maybe it's their group, like it's their senior group, or it's just a kid that has some moxie, right? You've had some kids that's got some moxie. You can't coach that. You can't coach the gamer. You can't coach how he responds. And hey, like, Patrick Mahomes, right? I picked the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Okay, but I said you can't never go against Patrick because he's crazy. And what does he do? First half they're off, but the second half he's doing what you can't coach that. Now, no one coached Patrick to play like that. That's just Patrick, And I think as far as leadership, it is harder nowadays, but it's so rewarding to see kids respond to the leadership roles when you see it's like a buy-in. When your team buys in, they buy in and they take over and start leading from others. It makes our job a whole lot easier, right? Because we can't be there for every single thing that they do because you're not on the field. They're calling the plays, they're correcting each other, they're making calls. So that's a good start in how they can rally themselves to be successful on the football field on Friday nights.
Well, mine is I have a little bit of I don't want to say an advantage, but I have a little bit of understanding of it because of my military background. In the Army, leadership has three big words that defines it: is purpose, direction, and motivation. So, it didn't come easy. I didn't know personalities at 15, 16, and 17, but the transfer of having them understand purpose, what are we doing this for? You should know why. You understand why, the direction of where we want to go, and of course motivation, which should be easy, but it's one of the more difficult things to do this day and age. And it really does suck. I mean, it's very unfortunate that we have young people who are so worried about standing up and speaking that passion and that love of the game to be leaders, that it's fading away. Like, man, I'd lose my mess quick, when I played quarterback and like, hey, we got to, but that was my personality. Now it's so difficult for them to just stand up amongst their peers and speak from the heart, or even something as small as, hey, let's get on the board, show me this play, because you're a defensive player and you're supposed to know this. Show me that you know it. Well, coach, do I really have to? Like those things like that. They know not to say that to me, but they get timid. It takes, and that frustrates because that's a part that's one of the more difficult parts of teaching leadership.
Yeah.
You know, we came up with the, you know, locker room conversations, the players only meetings, things like that. And it's just not as frequent as it was before anymore. But I think that it's very, very important that you create that environment for your program and make sure that you can take the steps needed to make great leaders, because we're great leaders. Yeah. So the first thing, you know, I always put in mind, and it's different from y'all's, mine is if they're going to be this way, if I want them to be disciplined, if I want them to model this, and this, I need to be that way. Mm-hmm. I definitely got to be that way. And like I said, I mean, I work out. I mean, I'm in school again and things like that, where they have no excuse because their coaches do it too. Yeah. We have been leaders. All of our staff, that's what we look for as leaders. And, you know, I think the military aspect of it, for me, helps me a lot with the coaching part of it. They're not soldiers. Yeah. Never saying that. They are not soldiers. But they know what right looks like, and they should know. Sure. So
I think it's always as you build your program and you talk to kids, that's always something you're trying to work towards. And I remember years ago, I had the Navy SEAL guys. It cost us like $5,000 or $3,000. It was a lot of money back in the day. Anyway. So we had those guys come in, and they did. You know, you've seen they did the Falcons. They did a lot of NFL teams. You still see these guys doing this, and they're bringing the logs out and they're running them. And then we had lunch. They did 2 45-minute classroom sessions. They talked about leadership and related to their, and you can understand this being a military background, that, you know, they would talk about that anytime they're in combat, they would take a bullet for their, you know, and if anybody ever shot at their comrades, you know, their partner, they would be infuriated. Yeah, I mean, they're ready to kill someone, you know, if their team, their partner there is getting shot at and their soldier. And I think that was the mentality that they tried to relate to our kids about. That's important as your teammates and how you relate to things. And that was a very eye-opening day. And I know if Bryce Robinson's watching, he would truly remember that day. I can promise you it was a very exhausting day. It was hot. And just doing the logs and the teamwork and those type things with those guys was very rewarding for our kids. And to see those guys come in and just try to take it to a new level, that was very interesting for us. So, leadership, Coach?
I mean, I think kind of going back to it, you know, I think at times you try to always kind of like use other kids that make mistakes as that, hey, like, this is what happens when you do these types of things.
Harsh realities.
But I do think this year, you know, me and my staff, we talked about it a lot. Because, I mean, that parent was right. Like, there's some things that we shouldn't have to teach. I shouldn't have to teach you to, like, I shouldn't have to do a parent's job. You know what I mean? Like, you should know what a good person does.
Okay, if I'm the funny guy, that wasn't funny. Okay. No. He said that. I didn't say that one.
But I mean, we're all thinking it. But
it's true.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's at the same time though, like they do have a point. You know what I mean? Like, I do need to find ways that we can kind of instill some of that leadership. So we've talked a lot about this year, setting up just pillars of our program, and kind of coming up with some type of acronym for that. And, you know, my assistant, Brian, does a really good job with that. And so we're trying to kind of see what that looks like, and then shape like maybe a leadership council where it's an optional thing. Right. But that kind of like the cream will come to the top with that, I think, where the leaders naturally want to lead. The leaders naturally want to have those tools. They want to be able to have the same rhetoric as us of, you know, like last year, our big thing was, you know, we talked about the Urban Meyer, you know, the event plus the response equals outcome. So E plus R equals O. So our big thing was response. And so anywhere they heard like if you could see a kid was about to maybe act out or do something out of line, you could be like, hey, what's our response going to be? Right. You know, whether it's in the classroom or on the football field or whatever. And so that was our big thing. But then you had the kids coming back, like some of the leadership kids, like, hey, what's your response? What's your response? Like, and you could hear it on the sideline too, where it's like a kid comes off, he got flagged, he's coming out, you know, and they're throwing their hands, you know, because it's never their fault. But they're coming out, and all of a sudden, you know, we're like, what's our response? Like, before you even step across that line, like, what's our response going to be? You going to throw your helmet? because you know what the outcome of that's going to be. It's a $500 helmet. You know what the response is going to be. You know what I mean? So I think we're going to kind of try to teach a little bit of that, especially in the off season, because we'll be lifting and we'll be able to pull some of those kids during some advisory periods and kind of share that message of, okay, here's the message. Here are tools and ways and actions that you can display this, with your words, with your emotions, with your actions, and help us kind of shape the way this team's going to be.
Vintage culture building right there.
Yeah, I think
it's a great one.
And there's no better time than January through April because there's not a whole lot going on. You know what I mean? I have
just moving those bars.
Yeah, you're weightlifting and during the school day.
Other sports, yeah.
Yeah, we got kids in baseball, track, and so I think having them inside the building, our admin is incredible with just allowing us to get creative with those type of things because they know. I mean, and we kind of talked about this with the county AD, like even with middle school football going back into being attached with the schools, it holds the kids accountable.
Sure.
Whereas in January and April, I would say we have most of our problems with our football players because there's no practice.
A little bit more freedom.
There's no games. There's a little bit more freedom. There's a little bit too much time. So I think incorporating those things throughout the day may help us a little bit, kind of maybe help spread that leadership. So we're excited to kind of see what that looks like, and hopefully it produces results on the field.
So what are y'all's academic standards for your players? Or if you've had some creative ones in the past, what are some of those for y'all, Coach Hood?
Well, for us, we back in the day, they used to be like a C or better GPA. Now, as far as the county goes, there's no standards.
True.
Okay, there's no standards. So basically for me, I've learned a long time ago, the more rules that I set, right? If I've got 35 rules, then I have to enforce 35 rules. So I think for us, I check their grades on a weekly basis. It's funny when you say that because today we didn't have practice, we had study hall. So I got coaches checking their grades, checking the zeros, making sure their work is turned in, and they're all around, and we had to go find all these cords to plug in their laptops. And so for us, it's just stay on top of it. I don't have a certain rule. You have to have 2.0 because I figure the more things that you set for me, then that's something you got to change and adjust, and does it move, does it slide, and are you going to let this kid? So I think I just check their grades, and if they need help, I find the kids help. A lot of times, are they lazy? Sure. Their work is not turned in. That's probably most of it. At Rossview, we've got great academics. We have great teachers that help with our kids. So I know our teachers. I know the kids. And if I've heard, I don't know if you've ever heard this one, like the teachers haven't put my grades in yet.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever heard that one?
Well, a couple times.
Yeah, so the teachers never put my grades in, Coach. It's all their fault. So heard that one a million times. So for me, actually, I don't have a rule like you got to have this, you got to have a 3.0, you got to have all the C's and up. I don't have that rule.
Teachers
I just stay
have
on top of it.
First of all, teachers have deadlines, y'all. Like they turn in grades. Let's clarify that.
And they have a life.
We don't want to hear that. Like they have deadlines to put in grades. If you're going to turn your stuff in late, you can't expect them to be on time with your grade because you already set that standard. I'm sorry,
that's true. I mean, you see kids and some teachers have a deadline. Some have, if you turn it in after a certain period, it's 50%.
Exactly.
Or it's 25%. Or I don't even take late work. So you have to understand who your teacher is. Sort of like football, right? Who's your coach? What's he asking of you? How you respond? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? So that's sort of how I do things. I just stay on top of them, checking their grades, have coaches check their grades, and we just stay on top of them as we go along through the season and make sure they don't get too far behind. When they do, I'm a big parent person now. Yep. I will call parents. I will contact their teachers. That doesn't bother me at all. And discipline in my classroom's the same way. I got a list. I contact them all the time. And then the first thing I'll say is, I need your help.
Yeah.
I need your help. If it's about your son or your daughter, then they want their kids to be better. So that's just sort of how I approach things, and in the academic world and at Rossview is sort of how we do things.
Yeah, I think we do two things that I think help. I don't know, you know what I mean? We always have kids that kind of you could put $1 million in front of them, and I still think they would still not understand the concept of just being able to do.
I think that goes back to being a kid.
You're
trying to teach them and show them.
But I would say during the season, I think what we've done, it was a little different than what the past head coach did, but we moved our team meal to Thursdays.
Right.
And my thought process was, like, a lot of kids, like we used to eat on Fridays and we'd keep them, and a lot of times you're keeping them for 4 hours, 5 hours. I mean they've been locked in that building for 8 hours. So now you're at 9, 10, 11, you're at 12 hours, like, at one location. And so my thought process is, well, a lot of those guys want to leave. Like I think it would do them some good to just get away from the building a little bit. Like, even as teachers, like, it's nice to kind of like run up to Taco Bell, sit at Taco Bell, be around adults, you know what I mean, just for a little bit, and then come back, and then, all right, now we're locked in.
Well, see, people don't understand that teachers, we are locked in a building from 7 o'clock till whenever we leave. So we don't have lunch with our buddies. Hey, Coach, meet me up here at lunch at Old Charlie's. We don't have that luxury. We're locked in, and classroom teachers are locked in. So I think people forget that we're like in a building, pretty much locked in with our kids all day long. So for kids to leave and do things, and even for coaches, you know, we don't get to leave a whole lot and do those type of things. So, and my thought process was, okay, well, I'll let them go. But if you have a D or an F, you've got to come to tutoring on Fridays. So from basically, and we have a list. So on Thursday, they know automatically, like, after practice, you're going to do a little extra because everybody else will go in and eat. And so we have all our meals catered. So everybody's going to get to eat first. You know what I mean? And then obviously we'll save them a plate. But there's no real seconds, you know what I mean? We always have seconds and thirds, and kids are taking to-go plates, and you're missing out on that because you can't pass, you know, science class or math class. And we always try to tell them, like, and I got this from, you know, the last coach I was with. If you have zeros, that means you're just not doing the work. You're being lazy. Right.
If you're not doing well, that means you need a tutor.
Right.
And so, you know, I have plenty of coaches on staff that I have history teacher, a math teacher. I used to teach English. So we have different subjects where we will spend time on those Fridays. We'll go in the classroom, help where we can.
Right.
You know, our coaches take turns. We'll schedule meetings for teachers to come in, kind of help tutor a little bit, try to get those grades up. And then I think a lot of times these kids, and especially this, like, everybody complains, like, oh, well, it wasn't like how it was in the past. Well, you can't change that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, these kids are who they are. So, like, we're not going back. And I think this generation is very consumed with themselves. I think, and they're consumed with, well, what's in it for me? So I always try to put the carrot of, like, well, we can get you recruited. And this is a busy time for us recruitment-wise, because from basically, you know, the National Signing Day is the first Wednesday in February. After that, that's when we start getting our 24s recruited. We're sending our list out. We're trying to get them. And I tell them every time, if a coach walks in this building, I have a list of players, right, and their GPA is on that list.
Yep.
And I update it every single time. So we had Taylor University come in. And the kids know, the moment you walk in that classroom with me to meet these recruiters, they're going to have your transcript before they leave.
Right.
So when and of course, Taylor University did do a great job. Both guys, first thing they say is, what do your academics look like? Well, and you can see, like, how am I going to get out of this situation? You know, but we emphasize that, you know, at the parent meeting we had back in January, I have like a recruitment slide.
Right. Because
again, the parents, like, it's everybody wants to get recruited, and that's a big thing for people. And we try really hard to get our kids recruited. And we show them the sliding scale, like, you know, and we show them, if you have this GPA, this is the ACT you need. If you have this ACT, you know, this is the GPA you need. And so we try to show them that, like, you know, Taylor University, first, you know, their kind of requirement is a 3.0.
high academics.
Yes.
Well, if you can't even get into the school,
Right.
that you just eliminated an option for you.
Absolutely.
And then that you lose leverage, and then you're paying, you know, a ridiculous amount of money to go chase a dream when it could have been for free.
Exactly.
Yep.
And they don't understand that it's got to be academics first. So we always try to pitch that. And you know, going back to kind of the same situation is, you know, we've had players in the past, 5 scholarship offers, colleges love them.
Can't even go.
They get the transcript, and all of a sudden it's radio silence. It's, hey man, we can't take this guy.
Yeah.
He's got a 1.6, and you know, that's our big thing, is we try to always pitch the recruiting aspect of, like, we can get you to college. Like if you really want to play, you work hard, you get in the weight room, like we can get you anywhere into college. But a lot of that has to be taken care of by you. I can't come to 6 a.m. lifts. I can't do your math homework. I can get you a tutor. And I make this joke all the time at our parent meeting. Like, I get all these parents like, hey, what trainer should I work out with? What trainer? I'm like, y'all need to be asking me about tutors. You need to be figuring out like who the tutors are, because the dream is dead without the grades. And so,
well, I think that parents don't understand that. I tell our parents that I don't sign kids scholarships. I'm not a college coach.
Yeah.
I don't offer them scholarships. So the universities that come into our programs, they offer kids scholarships. I don't.
Yeah.
So I don't offer them. And I think that I try to tell our kids, you're talking about GPAs and stuff, how many emails have you guys got from colleges and people and coaches talking to that say, I need any kid that has a 3.0 or higher and a 25 or higher on his ACT, or I need this GPA and this number, and you eliminate so many of your kids right off the bat just because they don't even have those numbers.
Well,
so they're eliminated right there.
Here's what I do, and I mean I thought this was a kind of a good idea. Every single one of those emails I get, I copy and paste it and pop it into Huddle message, and I just leave it and just say, hey, just letting you know, this is another college looking for athletes. Like verbatim, here's the coach's name, here's the university, this is exactly what they said. Like, and just to reiterate that message,
well, I think, like you said, we tell them, and then I'll pull my email up. Look, I got this 5 minutes ago before practice starts. Boom, here's what the coach is looking for. Now, do you fall in that category?
Yeah. And
so look at yourself.
Yeah.
This is what we're talking about. We're talking about your academics. Because, if kids are really, really good ball players, they're going to know that part, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you're and I think some of our kids have a misconception of what a D1 kid is.
Yep.
D1 kids, what the coaches call freaks.
Yeah.
They are super, super talented in some area. Is it speed, right? Is a kid a 4.2 kid, which all of our kids think they run 4.2s, okay? 4.2s, we don't see 4.2s. But no. Okay, is the kid, is his size, like, is he 6'8", 300? Wow. Is his strength, So I think some of our kids get the misconception of what it really takes to be a D1 kid. Those Alabama kids and Tennessee kids, those are different level kids. If you're going to go there, you got to be one of those freaks in one or two or more of those areas. And I've had many college coaches tell me, that's what they'll say, hey, you getting freaks? And I've had some really, really great players that fit some of those categories that they go on to play. And then some other guys, they're not that kid, right?
Yeah.
But they all want to play. So I thought you made a good point where if kids don't have those grades, right? If they can't get in those great schools or the big schools, then they fall into a different category. And some kids may want to go play in a college in Ohio, but they're paying $20,000 a year to play football. Mm-hmm. When maybe they should think about going to Austin Peay and staying at home and getting a Hope Scholarship and paying $1,000 a year or $2,000 a year. So is football that important to you to go spend $20,000 a year in loans that maybe they have to pay back, maybe they don't.
Maybe.
I think they're deciding that right now, so I don't know. That's another story. That's Politics 103. That's a different level. But, for kids, I think I try to get my kids to understand that. Is it grades? What level can you play at? Where do we fit them in? What's a good fit for you? Do you want to go to California and play football? Or are you going to go to South Dakota and be home after 1 week? What fits you?
Yeah.
So we got to be realistic about where you want to go play, where you can fit in, and the money aspect. Because I think our kids, you guys understand when they offer these sheets, right? They say, I'm getting all this money, but some of that is loans. It's, the Stanford loan and this loan. Those are loans that you have to pay back.
Yep.
And I think our kids forget that, well, I've got a scholarship, that's $5,000. But you're paying, $60 a year at some of these schools, like you talk about Swanee and some of these other great colleges, Rhodes in Memphis and other places, very high academics, but their tuitions is sometimes higher, if not higher than Vanderbilt's.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that. And if you're not getting academic money, they don't offer a lot of athletic money, as you guys understand, that you got to compensate that with academics. And if you don't get that, you're paying money. Yeah. You're taking loans, or your parents. If your parents can afford that, then that's fine. So every kid is in a different situation, I think.
Well, for me, it's the first thing is I tell our young men that, number one, like, I'm not going to lie to a college coach.
Yeah.
I don't care how big a talent you are. if they say how's his character, you know, okay, he's got great character, he's a good kid, okay kid, whatever the case may be, then they say how are his grades. I'm not going to be like, oh, it's no, I'm going to tell you his grades stink or his grades are great or good. And mine is basically I'm working from, hey, the kids that have that D or that F, like how do we mitigate that and get him where he's supposed to be? Excuse me. The most important part of that whole thing is we got to get these kids early, right? These kids are not even realizing that they're affecting themselves until they're juniors, essentially. You know, that's the one thing that kind of pains me when I first got into becoming a head coach is you got these juniors and these seniors who are like, yeah, you know, I had good grades, but I messed up at my freshman year or that sophomore year. And then there was that 1 year where everybody was on the computer screen, but most of the time it was paused or they were asleep or something. Like those years, those vital years, like we have to get to these guys early to let them understand that. And I think the slides that y'all put up and the way y'all portray it is fantastic because they don't realize it. Like you say, they don't know what it takes to become a Division I athlete. It's unfortunate because you can have great schools come and ask about kids, even to the point where these kids are getting offered, and then they have to send that transcript. And they see that they got a 1.9, 1.3, 1.5, you know, things like that. And it's unfortunate because, you know, you got to see that. And I mean, I'm very genuine and I try to be very honest and forthcoming to my guys. And I tell them like, hey man, you want to go here, you got to fix this, this, and this first. There's no way. And just like y'all schools, we have great teachers that tutor our kids and take care of our kids. Even some that I have to walk to the teacher and say, hey, you know, I'm trying to help so-and-so out. You know, is there anything that he can do? And if there's nothing, then, hey, you laid in that bed. You created that, you know, situation. But more often than not, man, that's why I appreciate our faculty at Northwest and staff because they do things out of their own realm to help these young people. And at the end of the day, that coincides with what I believe in. Let's help these young men. Let's help these young people and put them into college. And once others see how many of our young people are getting recruited, going to schools, no matter what now, no matter what school. I'm not saying Division I all the way down because like you said, the freak aspect is very true. And no matter what, when you start seeing kids signing days and going into college and those things like that, it resonates. They see it and they're like, well, I want to be that guy. That's why, you know, one of our things when it comes to recruitment is, yeah, I give them the option to go or not, but more often than not, I want my whole team there to see it. So you can see, like, once they get up and walk away, that chair can be for you too, for you to sign your stuff, you know.
Well, and kind of hitting off of that, like, kind of two things, like that was my big push when I first got here. I was begging the admin, because like they would always do their signing days in the library. Well, if we're gonna preach academics, like everybody should be there, being like, we are celebrating these individuals.
It's a school environment
because they did what they were supposed to do in the classroom, and they did what we did in the weight room, and they did what we asked them to do on the football field. And so we had our signing day this year in the gym, put every kid in there. Our admin was great about it. It was hectic as crazy. Like that schedule, some of those teachers hate it.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, we had one of our JRTC instructors. He's like a DJ. He had music going. We had the new video board going. We had everybody. We had 6 kids signed volleyball, soccer. We had a swimmer. We had 2 football players, and we wanted to make this a party, to where every kid's like, man, this is crazy. This is great. Like, this is fun. I want to be that guy. Well, this is how you do it. You know, we make sure we preach that message. And then I think, you know, going back to kind of what we were talking about, I had this kid, it was actually when we played y'all. The rule was, you don't show up to that Friday tutoring, you're not playing. Like, because we have to emphasize this.
Of course.
He left, went to Subway. So I was like, he came back.
Trying to figure out
what's up? Where's my stuff? I said, you're not playing. Like, you knew the rules, right? Yeah. You left. Yeah. I don't know what to tell you.
Enough said.
And it was so crazy. is he was upset, rightfully so. And again, he's a senior. I don't want to do that to a kid.
Sure.
Like, I hate doing that.
Sure.
You're a senior. You should enjoy it. But you have to be set apart. And you have to, like, this is just a bad example of, and I kid you not, he walked out onto the field while we're warming up. And he said, I just want to let you know, like, I understand why you did that. And he was like, I know you're just trying to make us better.
Growth in him.
And you're just like that, because like there's times you yell at the kids and you're like, man, I don't know if what I'm saying is getting through to these kids. Like they're just looking back.
How many names popped up?
Yeah,
How many names?
They're just looking back at you like, and you're just like, I don't like. Sometimes you leave and you're like, did I do anything?
It's like
you know what I mean?
Sometimes it's like talking the wall.
Yeah, but then when you do have someone come back and they're like,
that's it.
Hey man, I messed up.
That usually takes days too for a student. That happened instant.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and
That's
it was kind of like it was a kind of cool moment where like now the other kids see the pain, but they also see like, all right, like this is what's his response. Like, and that was the cool thing, is like that response factor went in, the maturity of that kid went in, and now you can see like, all right, like these kids are going to be okay when they leave. You know what I mean?
Well, it's nice to see instant gratification when they know it that quick, which is unusual.
Oh, super unusual.
It's usually when they get out, as you talk about, they get in school, they get their family, and I get texts and calls, and that's pretty cool stuff. On the flip side of the grades, let me say this to parents. I think some parents don't understand this. We're talking about recruiting. So here is what some college coaches has asked me about players that you probably don't understand.
Let's go.
They will ask me, obviously, the coach will come in and say, what's his GPA, right? What's his grades? They'll ask me, what kind of kid is he?
Yep.
They'll ask me, how is his mother and father? Are they married? Are they together? What's their jobs? I've had that asked many times. How is their parents in the relationship to your program? Are they involved in your program? Many times they've asked me that. What kind of kid is he? Is he a leadership? How does he act in the weight room?
Yep.
How does he act in the classroom? Is there any issues with him? Because when they get to that point, they know your kid can play. They're trying to find out the intangibles. Because I tell people, I tell these kids, there's other kids that can play. You're not the only kid they can offer a scholarship to.
That's right.
So if you don't fit the bill somewhere, then they're going to find somebody else that can. And I was talking to a coach a couple years ago, this Austin Peay quarterback coach, and I asked him, I said, Coach, you've got a 6'3" quarterback and a 6'2" quarterback, and they're both the same. So which one are you going to take? 6'3". He's an inch taller. If everything else is the same, you're taking size. Right. And that's what, at that level, they're looking for size. The big kids, if they duck, getting in the door to talk to the coach, they like them already. If they walk straight in and they're, they don't fit the bill that they're looking for, then they might be looking in another area. But I think for parents, those are things that coaches come to us and ask. And years ago, I was sort of like, wow, they're asking about parents and their jobs and how involved they are in the community. Those things really surprised me that those coaches are asking about that. I've got a kid playing at Princeton. I've got a kid playing at other levels. And I think when you see those guys know that they're going to spend that much money on these kids and invest that much time, they really want to know what kind of kid he is.
For sure.
They don't want to put him in school for 6 months a year and he's gone. And you talked about your word. Yep. You don't want to tell a coach one thing about a kid that's not true. He goes to that school. 6 months later, he quits. He's in trouble. And then he comes and asks you about the next kid that hey, this kid can play. And it's like, well, coach, you told me about this kid and he was there 6 months. And I had a coach that called me at a really good university the other day, was asking about a preferred walk-on for a kid. And then he said, hey, we want to offer him. We want to look to see if we can offer him a preferred walk-on. And then, so I sent him the information on his GPA. When he saw that, he said, we're going with another kid. Nope. And that GPA alone eliminated him. And they were talking about how they feel like that if your GPA is higher, then they feel like you're probably a better student, you're a better player, you're more disciplined, you're doing the right things on and off the football field, so they're going to go a different direction. So I hated to tell that kid, but that's part of our job also. And that wasn't the first time he's heard that. That's something obviously we all preach in our programs. But let me say this. Talking with you guys has been eye-opening for me, so I appreciate you guys. Sure. And I've got 2 kids that played football. My oldest one played for Coach Hood, so that wasn't a good example. But I always want my kids or these kids, our kids, the community to play for really good coaches who care about them, who want the best for them. That I don't want you to pat them on the back. I want you to treat them hard, rough, firm, and fair. That's what you're going to see in the real world. Sure. So listen to you coaches is really great to know we have great young guys in this community that's teaching these kids the right thing, that's trying to get them to grow as a person in the classroom, on the field, and we all want to win. By no means we want to beat each other's brains out. That's part of it. We understand that. But to see that you guys are great coaches, doing things the right way in our community, really says a lot about you and the school who hired you and the approach that you're taking. So I appreciate that.
For current and exclusive content, subscribe to CDE Lightband, connecting you at the speed of light.